Women get real. Amelia talks to us about her highs and lows of her breastfeeding journey.
Okay, big thing for obviously expectant mums is breastfeeding.
Yes.
We are literally, it's near rammed down our throats from the first appointment, or literally from as soon as you find out you're pregnant. Which for some people is great. Both of us did breastfeed. But both had very different experiences of breastfeeding. So I suppose, for you, breastfeeding you had a really bad journey.
Yeah, I mean, until I had Alfie, I was never married to the idea of breastfeeding. Part of it being stubbornness, with people shoving it down your throat, telling you breast is best, this is the way you have to do it. And this is what I did, this, I did that. Okay, we are totally different. And I think as well, so my sister had a very problematic birth with her first and wasn't able to breastfeed because the baby was so small. And I remember being like, well, he's a thriving, wonderful boy now. He was bottle fed. My mum, due to health complications, was told that she wasn't able to breastfeed neither my sister or I. And we're both absolutely fine. And so I was never overly married to the idea. I was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I will never forget, they put Alfie on my chest, and it was literally like the most natural instinct I've ever seen. He almost crawled down to my chest, and his latch was perfect. He ate away, and I remember in that moment just feeling so overwhelmed and weirdly the most empowered. And sexy sounds weird because I'm feeding a child, but I think it's the most woman female I've ever felt. This is like, shit, this is literally what I am designed to do. I've had my baby, and I kind of felt like, not in that moment, but I remember thinking, I've been told I said I need to have a cesarean. So if that decision has been made for me, then this is the next most natural part of being a mother. Let's grab it by the horns, and this is fantastic. And I remember just in that moment, I was so overwhelmed with the love for this child, and you are feeding him, all you, and it was just the most incredible feeling. And another thing that appealed to me about breastfeeding was it's only you that can feed the child. And I think a lot of people, they just want to help, but people are, I'll feed him, I'll do this. And I found that very difficult in the beginning, when I'll come onto it, but when I transitioned to bottle, because I was like, no, I'm his mum. If there's anyone else that's going to feed him, it'll be his dad. And I found it really hard watching other people feed him, because I was like, oh, another reminder that I'm not doing it myself, which isn't a thing. But it just, at that moment in time, it was a big deal for me. And so it was all going so swimmingly, so well. Throughout the hospital, every 3 hours, he just took, it's the dream. It was 20 minutes on each side. Then he'd sleep until the next 3 hours. And I just was like, Alexa, play Shaka Khan, I'm Every Woman. This is incredible. And then the journey started going south when we got home. He lost quite a bit of weight, not quite 10% of his birth weight, but he wasn't gaining as much as I think they'd have liked. Then for about 12 hours, we didn't have any wet or dirty nappies. But I so wanted to persevere. And then the day my milk came in, the fevers start, which you know about. But then my nipples started to become incredibly sore, and I just assumed it was mastitis. And a couple of days later, the tip had burst, and it was it was an open wound. Essentially, my nipple was an open wound, and so he no longer could feed from that side because there was so much blood there. It had become unsafe for him. So then I was told to express, and Jeff bought me the LV pumps, which are incredibly expensive but were a lifesaver, and meant that for the first 6 weeks he got my milk, which was so important to me. Would I, he's going to kill me if he hears this, would I do it again if I had the same breastfeeding journey? Probably not. I probably would have transitioned to bottle sooner, because being out, putting the pump in, they are the easiest way to breast pump, but it's still a bit of a fast. And it wasn't until a midwife had come round and Alfie was struggling a little bit with his tummy, and she looked at my milk and said, "Your milk is brown." And I was like, "Is that bad? I don't know. Like, isn't that just the color of breast milk?" And she said, "There is so much blood in this milk. It's making your child unwell." So then I was sent to the doctor, who had then found lumps. So I was then referred to the breast clinic, but everything was clear. There was nothing, sinister. It was the start of abscess. So for me, then I was told, this is where like the journey has to stop. So it was a really long and painful 6 weeks, 6 weeks of antibiotics, 6 weeks of not being able to wear a bra without having pads on and plasters. And it wasn't until Alfie was about 10 weeks old that my nipple even started to look normal again. So looking back, from someone that had not been married to breastfeeding at all, I'm surprised I lasted as long as I did. But I think when you see your friends breastfeeding, a friend that had a baby very close to me, and it's the most beautiful thing. And I think after that first experience of it, I immediately was married to the idea. But it just, in hindsight, it wasn't worth the pain, the tears, the sleepless nights. And because I kept having to chuck my breast milk away, I actually dried up very quickly. And it wasn't a painful experience then drying up, other than one time when I thought I'd totally dried up. We went for lunch at our wedding venue, and my mum was over, so I'd done my makeup for one of the very first times and done my hair, and I was feeling amazing. Like, I was like Alexa play Pretty Woman. I was feeling fantastic. Got out the car, the wind in my hair. For Jeff and my mum say, "Oh, Amelia," and I had a big wet patch through my dress. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll just wait in the car." No, I just put my hair over it. I'm very lucky that I have long hair in that moment. But I think one thing that was intimidating actually about breastfeeding was someone that was working at nights had a very different approach to the other ones. So when I had him on the chest, when he stopped feeding, someone told me to blow, to wake him up, to blow air into his face. And I was doing that, and this woman had come in, and this is how not very nice she was. I don't even remember her name. She was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And so gave me different advice. And then, so I was doing it differently. For then the next morning, someone with a much softer approach, like, "Oh, why are you doing that? Try this." And I think it's so overwhelming, and everyone has different methods, that I guess there isn't one uniform school of thought, but you really need it, because essentially it isn't the baby that doesn't know what they're doing, it's us, and it's such an overwhelming experience, because you're literally feeding the human you've grown for 9 months. So that is one thing to be aware of. There's a lot of conflicting advice.
I think even that's where we sort of slipped through the nets too, with being in a pandemic, because
absolutely.
There was none of the classes before where they showed us like different positions to put the child in. Like, I think your automatic is you automatically cradle the child. Nobody told you, "Oh, well, you can lie on your side and they will literally do it. You can hold them like a rugby ball and they will do it." It's about finding what's comfortable 100%. For you as them. So I think that, as you say, there's a lot of conflicting advice. So it's just get as much knowledge about it as you possibly can, and ask.
If classes open up, go to them.
Yeah,
please go to them, because it's a real shame my breastfeeding journey turned out that way, and it has left me a little conflicted whether I'd even try again, I guess. So I think even for me, if I was lucky to have a second child, if there was classes, I would probably go to them.
Oh, 100%. I'm like that. Like, I know, like, for me, I breastfed, then combi fed. Obviously, and back in hospital 2 days after we were home. Didn't ideally work.
But your flow stayed so strong. I was believe it.
I was
it was
so
incredible.
lucky. That my milk did come in and everything was great and it worked really well. But again, I don't know if I could have done completely breastfeeding for a long period of time. I know I done it for, the whole time he was born. Like the first time, whenever we were in hospital, the whole time we were in for the 3 or 4 days, he was completely
it was
breastfed.
Exclusive, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then God love him, we got home and I ended up back in the hospital the day after we were home. So he sort of got through in that he didn't have an option because I was in the hospital. And again, because of COVID, him and Ryan couldn't be with me. It was a case of Ryan could leave him off.
I can't imagine that, Jem. I can't imagine it.
He could come up, be fed, and then go back out till Ryan, because we didn't know how long obviously I was going to be in. But again, it's just, I think everybody's journey is very different.
So different.
And we just all need to talk to each other about our journeys, because
absolutely judgment free as well.
Because I think
tough.
We all have had these experiences, and there's plenty of people who have had the exact same experience as us, or worse, or better. And I think if we all talk about it, it makes it more normal.
And normalizes it. Absolutely. And it's so important to normalize it. And I think, do you know what I think as well? It's when I certainly felt this, when I became pregnant and certainly becoming a mum, I've been able to speak my mind a lot more, and it's that mama bear instinct. And it's now, I would never let people get away with saying things to me that they perhaps did when I was pregnant or feeding. I remember sitting in a pub about to get a bottle out to not just sit. I don't sit in pubs all day, by the way, people. I was there for lunch. And getting a bottle out to feed Alfie, and someone saying, oh, the bottles have changed since I was younger. And it was a man saying that, as it all the feeding methods have changed since I was younger. Basically, a comment at the fact that I was breastfeeding. And it's like, this is why I went through 6 weeks of hell, because of that pressure that people put on you. A fed baby is a happy baby, and a happy baby is a happy mum. And it seems so cliche to say it until you're a mum and you get it, because there's nothing worse than a hungry baby that isn't thriving. Like, whatever is best for you, don't let anybody say anything, or if they do, shut them down or just brush it off, because you and that baby are the only things that matter. And that is my biggest thing, and I'm very vocal about it. And Jeff constantly calls me a keyboard warrior because of it, but it is just, I'm done. I'm fed up of friends and family coming to me being upset about things that I've said, and I'm guilty of sitting there and letting things being said to me in a pub from a man that I don't know, to family members, whatever. It's just like, no, this is your journey, your baby, and take control. That's the main thing that I can say. And I think my baby's just woken up.
Right on time.
On that note.
Thank you
so much.